everybody. Welcome to a somewhat delayed second half of our talk about WandaVision and how it's terrible because it didn't lead into anything else that everybody wanted from the Marvel Universe, and Mephisto wasn't in it, and Benedict
No
Cumberbatch
mutants.
didn't show up. There were no mutants, and they
Yeah.
named the guy who played Quicksilver Boner, and just it
Oh,
was
it's so
just
bad.
it was just terrible. So we're here to just talk about how bad it is.
Yeah.
I am your host,
Yeah.
Erik Fedorchak. Who else is here with me?
Yeah, Arlen Harrow here to discuss all the fan theories that were wrong. Yeah.
I'm Ralph Boner.
I'm Lou Gonzalez. If you remove all the members from Phantom Zone and replace them with other members, is it still the Phantom Zone?
Very nice. So yeah, what was it? How many episodes did we cover before? Was it the first 4?
I think it was the first 4.
Yeah,
First
first
four?
4 or 5. One of the
First 4 or 5, yeah.
I think
we
the last one we covered was when what's his name showed up. I think, right?
Yeah,
At
it
the
was.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
don't remember which episode that was. It's all a blur at this point.
To be fair, that episode was not the most organized or
No.
or specific. It was a lot of talking, so not in any specific order. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's in all honesty, us trying to cover episode by episode is a pointless endeavor at this point. That, and I think we're all just kind of sick of doing that on a regular basis. So yeah, going into this, I guess we're gonna talk about the things that maybe we weren't happy with, or the fans might not have been happy with, and then we'll get to the good stuff, which is us just geekgasming all over it. God, I sounded like a fucking 90-year-old man saying that.
Yeah, you did, but it worked. I was fine with it. So I do want to address sort of what you hinted at, which is the whole fans were not happy, or I don't even want to say fans. I just
a contingent.
The term,
yeah,
a loud minority contingent.
Yeah, the people who are not satisfied by anything, let's say that those people had problems with the finale. And I don't know if this has become an unpopular opinion in the weeks since this episode aired. Those people are wrong for being mad about what they're mad about. But I think that they're reacting to a problem with the final episode. For me. But I want to hear what you guys thought of the final episode, because I think that that's where a lot of the negative stuff is going to come from. But I want to hear what the rest of you thought of the final episode.
I think, and this is and I talked to some the students I had, and there was the one who then got chided by the entire class. I told him he was failing because he didn't like the show. I think that some people, and I definitely saw this, thought this show was going to be more action-y. And they got they just didn't get it. It's almost, I feel like the show wasn't highbrow, but somehow made people think it was, and that put them off.
I think so. That's a good point. I feel like it almost is you can't satisfy anyone situation, where I think there are some people who expected it to mean a little bit more than it did, and those people were disappointed. And then there are the people who just want
punchy explosion,
potatoes. Yeah, that the basic stuff, the stuff that you want. That most people are like, well, it's a Marvel thing, so I expect this to be there. And there wasn't a lot of that either. So I do wonder if it's a little bit of that situation.
Yeah, I think there was a certain contingent of people who went into this thinking it was going to be a 9-hour Marvel movie.
Yeah,
and to some extent, it was. It just it had more time to do all the things that you don't get to see as much in the quote unquote shorter Marvel films. But I don't know. I think Lou hit on a point that I hadn't really thought about. It wasn't quite as highbrow as it was setting itself up to be, but it was still a notch or two above most of the movies, at least like
Mhm.
emotional content that it was delivering. But
Well,
yeah,
I think you hit it on that emotional kind of like this show is very emotional, and I think the people who did not like it either didn't connect with it, which okay, I guess that can happen,
Sure.
or were not prepared for this to be an emotional show.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
I guess like because like it's hard to remove like decades of comic book knowledge and even like
Mhm.
passing knowledge of like certain characters, but like I from the it's like the people who like because I know like my wife's cousins, teenagers, and they saw trailers, they were like, I don't know if I want to watch this show. Is it just going to be this goofy thing with the like these reenacting these episodes, like these old TV shows? Like they just didn't get it,
Mhm.
and I feel like this was like that TV show part of it too was like aimed at like an older audience because I feel like I don't like Hunter and Arlen was like all those old shows even on TV when you guys were growing up because they were like on TV like Nick at Night when I was growing up.
Here's
I'm
the
a
thing.
bad person to ask because the only era that they covered that was something that I had no context for is the 70s. The rest of it I have some context for. I talked about this I think once a long time ago. I grew up watching I Love Lucy like a lot. I watched a lot of 80s sitcoms when I was much younger. I watched Malcolm in the Middle a lot when I was younger as well. That was like my show. And then Deborah Jo Rupp in the form of that 70s show. So like I have context for a lot of this stuff that most normal people don't have, I feel like. But maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
Hunter,
I feel like that's like from the younger people I've talked to, it's like I feel like they're like in those earlier episodes they didn't get the joke of like what they were spoofing in the sit like
that's what that's the thing that Erik Sayor said to me when we recorded Los Haro about it. He didn't have any context for those first 2 episodes.
Yes, Erik,
outside of
representation of all people from Canada.
Right, yes.
Well, like
yes.
French,
Yeah.
like French
Well,
Canada, though.
Well, yeah,
he's
he's French
Canadian
Canadian, so he's very
liaison.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Hunter, you had something you wanted to say. Sorry, not to step all over you, Arlen, but Hunter wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So the real to answer Lou's question, the only real context I have is like my grandmother constantly watches stuff like this. Like she'd watch like stuff from the 50s or like a lot of like what is the one with Archie Bunker? That one?
On the
Family.
On the Family, yeah.
That's like the best one.
Yeah. It's pretty. I mean, I'm watching it now. A little weird.
Well, then it's more like the background of the show is like what makes it awesome because the guy who is the lead was completely playing a character because he was one of the most liberal people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's just like, but like I was fortunate enough to have that context. If I did not have that, I would not know anything. Really.
Which, thinking about it, that would have been a really interesting twist if they would have done a variation of that on WandaVision, where
I don't even know how.
He's just a terrible bigot. But go ahead.
Oh, I just meant that the one thing that's funny is though, like when I talked to my niece who's like 10, that was the part that she connected with. She loved those first couple episodes because she got the humor. She didn't get the references. Right. She just got what like the bits, like as if it was actually a sitcom. Yeah.
Well, because
that's like universal, that style of comedy in a way.
Well, yeah, because like part of why The Simpsons is universal and why you can show early Simpsons to somebody of any age is because they're going off the same thing. The Simpsons is like all of sitcom history sort of put into one show. And it's a lot of the same comedy and just a lot of shows aimed towards kids. A lot of times they are just utilizing pre-existing concepts and pre-existing sitcoms as part of their identity, and some of them are interesting for kids because of that, because you don't really need to change anything. You can sort of just use what already exists. So that makes sense to me.
That was the thing though, like when my wife and I first started watching the show, like I was admittedly a little bit reticent going in because I'm like, I've never been a fan of like 50s and early 60s like sitcoms like
Yeah.
Bewitched and Dick Van Dyke Show I could give two shits about, but
Yeah.
it was done well enough that like I even found myself laughing at a few of the jokes during it because it's a universal language. It's something that's been iterated on so much that seeing it at its basic core, you're like, okay, I get it. I understand why.
Also, like, it is handled at the upteenth level by the two leads. Like, they have such goddamn great chemistry. And Paul Bettany was like born in the wrong decade. He could have born in any of those decades and would have been an amazing lead for a sitcom.
Yeah. And he loved it. Apparently, I'm gonna
you could see it on the screen.
Well, yeah, because I watched the behind the scenes special thing that they did assembled, and he has said that like he wishes that he had been doing sitcoms all this time because he really loved the experience. He also said that he really loved having a live audience there to cheer him on and to give him applause,
which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Wait, did they actually have that?
Yes.
For the first episode, they did. They had a real live studio audience.
Yeah, I guess like that makes. I feel like like he just like it's. I feel like when you're watching the show, you can feel like, oh, he's figuring like this is like an actor, like a movie actor, figuring out like, oh man, like this is a thing that doesn't exist that I am so good at.
Well, I also wonder if his tune would change if he wasn't getting paid Disney money to do it.
Bro, I'm sure that really helps.
Right.
Yeah. But back to the earlier question about the final episode. I don't know. I really didn't have any terrible issues with the way it was handled because I knew the last episode was going to be a bombastic affair. Like they had been building and building and building, and it's like, all right, this is where all of the budget is going because that entire episode looked as good as any of the more recent Marvel films, special effects wise. Like I don't know. I mean, I know this is supposed to be the point where we're airing grievances and doing feats of strength and all that for the Festivus poll, but I really had no issues with this series whatsoever. Like I'm glad it came out when it did too, because that was something I'd pointed out in the chat was that originally Doctor Strange was supposed to be coming, or Doctor Strange 2 was supposed to be coming out in May. And I feel like the show wouldn't have had as much of an impact if it would have been like shortly before Doctor Strange 2. It would have just felt like, oh, this is the preamble to Doctor Strange 2.
Well, and not even that. It's like we're also media starved, and especially for the Marvel stuff. Like it's been, what was the last thing that came out? Spider-Man?
Yeah. Over
and that was
2 years ago now.
Yeah. So like everyone's been like I literally like the kids like I cannot wait. Like we got Winter Soldier coming up, then we got Doctor Strange, and people are even like, oh, and there's that Shang-Chi movie. Like that's how like we've been trained, and it's like they're so starved. And I think it's also like what really helped this and the week to week thing, like the build kind of like all fed into this thing.
Yeah, the week to week thing really helped. So I agree for the most part. I don't think the show is. I think most of the show is really good. I think the first 2 episodes are a bit long in retrospect. I haven't gone back and watched them, but I do think that I can see how they might be a little bit boring. I think the entire middle of the show is really good, and more on that later. And I think that the middle of the show is almost an achievement in how good it is and how they're able to maintain this energy. I think that the ending has problems. I think it's a flawed finale. I don't think that it's a bad finale. I don't think that it's an awful finale. But thinking about it for a little bit longer than we would have if we had done this last Saturday, in which case it would just be all glowing. It would just all be blowjobs all over the place. Having a little bit more time to process it.
Can you blow vision? Is he anatomically correct?
I don't know. I don't know.
You have a soul.
But I would like to figure it out. But no, having a little bit more time to like process it, I think that there is something a little bit off. I don't think it really fully develops a lot of the stuff that was set up And I think that that's what a lot of the sort of contingent that we were talking about earlier is reacting to. I don't think that they're correct for being like, well, none of my theories were right, or none of the things that I wanted to come true were right. And sure, they can be angry about that.
There
but
are
I think
a lot
it's more,
there were a lot of things that like where people jumped on theories. There's like, ooh, what's Hayward? Like, is Hayward a thing? Like, is this a thing? Mephisto, everything. Everyone's Mephisto. The mailman. Like,
and I think they're all caught up in the same feeling of there are aspects of the season or aspects of the show that are set up in the rest of the show that aren't entirely paid off. And I'm talking more dramatically and from a storytelling perspective. There's just stuff that really does not pay off properly. There's stuff that they set up with Wanda, and stuff about her story arc that doesn't really work. But this is where I sort of go back to something that Erik brought up. Doctor Strange was supposed to come out like the day after this finale. And I think that it's one of those things where you can either be really bothered by the fact that the Marvel Universe is the Marvel Universe, or you can embrace it. A lot of this stuff would have worked better if the next day or the next week you were going to see Doctor Strange in theaters. A lot of it would just feel much different. It's the same thing that a lot of people felt after Infinity War came out, where they didn't know how to fully formulate their opinion, and they couldn't for an entire year.
And they're also like, oh, everyone's dead, but they're all going to come back. We all know it. It's like, well, no shit. That's how stories
it's a comic book movie.
Yeah. Right.
I do have. I don't want to forget. Like, I do have one pretty decent grievance with the ending when we get. Like, I don't understand why White Vision fucks off.
Well,
that makes no sense to me.
My interpretation of that. Oh, go ahead.
See, because he gets his memories back, so then he's essentially like Infinity War Vision.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't he still love Wanda? And then he fucks off?
I mean, I'm completely theorizing here. I think he needs to process all of this information that immediately came back to him. He knows it all, but he needs to decide how this feels. And also, we don't know if his personality has changed.
He doesn't have the Mind Stone, so we don't know how that affects him either.
Thinking about it, Lou, like if somebody was, let's say your future self came to you and was like, here, I'm going to give you all of the knowledge for the next 30 years right now. Like, you would have to take some time to be able to process all of that. White Vision was essentially a newborn, and he had directives that he was programmed with, and then all of a sudden he's given all of this stuff that when his alternative version or when his original version had free will and whatnot, like it's a lot for something to handle. So I completely buy into the theory that Arlen presented, because that was going to be the same thing I said, is that he needed to fly off and figure out what the fuck's going on in his head. Because I mean, I think an aspect of the Mind Stone was obviously given to him by that quick flash of yellow.
Tap. Yeah. No, I get all that, but like that was kind of my only thing. It's like he never, like, you would at least think some part of him once he'd wake up, like in that moment, would be like Wanda. Like that's the only thing. Yeah, that was the only part of it that, like, and doesn't bother me enough to care whatsoever. But like that was like my only thing. That I was like, huh.
Yeah, I would love to sit here and like explain all the things that I don't think entirely work, but this is the one time where I'm going to be like, go listen to another show. Go listen to another show. I'm not going to name both the shows that I would go listen to, but go listen to the podcast Story Mode, hosted by David Bell and Tom Ryman, and their podcast and their episode, their review of it is very much from the perspective of two screenwriters and two people who are very much like structuralists, and they're looking at it from a very heavily critical point of view. And if you want to get a sense of why the finale doesn't really work, And I put it all in the finale. I think a lot of the stuff that doesn't work comes from the finale. They will give you a good insight as to why parts of it don't work. But they are not the only podcast that has sort of, pushed me a little bit. But having multiple voices that I really trust a lot tell me the same things over and over again. And when I hear the same comments from people who would otherwise completely disagree on everything else, saying essentially the same thing, I have to look at it and say, there's something there. They're not just hitting on nothing. It's not a situation of, well, this person just doesn't, I just don't agree with them. They're wrong about that thing. That is something. So this is the one time where I'm like, no, go listen to somebody smarter than me who can explain it a little bit better than me. But there are problems with the finale. There are problems with the way that it's written and the way that things come together. I could get into more, very nerdy stuff about, I don't really love the way that they handle Agnes. I think the fact that they leave her open is good. If they had killed her off, though, I would be like furious.
That would have been terrible if they killed her off. I would have been pissed.
Yeah. And there are problems with that final battle sequence. It's not the best. The fact that anybody can be confused about it means that it's not the best.
Where they're just like Dragon Ball Z, like throwing energy balls at each other.
And so there's problems with it. There's stuff in there that's like, okay, Wanda's journey is not really fleshed out that well, and it's not all that complete.
I think that to me that has to do with the Doctor Strange thing.
Exactly, that's the thing. It's like, well, again, like I said,
and especially what we see in the second post-credit scene, like, I almost don't even know what to make of that scene because she's in like, is she two beings kind of?
So I'm remembering now. So the problem is this. It's a show that purports to be about grief and dealing with grief, and it's something that the people in charge of it have said that it's about, but it doesn't really deal with her grief, you could argue. And it kind of floats around that, and you get the suggestion that she is over her stuff, but
I don't think it
isn't over anything, that she is still dealing with it. And again, it's one of those things where, does it bother you that they're going to have to continue doing this in the next MCU thing, or is it something that you're going to embrace or enjoy? And I can see both sides, and I can kind of feel both things. I can look at it from a structuralist point of view and be like, that's a problem, but I can also say, yeah, but it's the MCU, and I expect this from the MCU.
See, if I was to describe it, I wouldn't say
where I would usually lean very much in the direction of, well, it's the MCU. But I think in the case of this show, and because of the lofty expectations that the showrunners want me to have, I lean a little bit one way, or a little bit the other way as well. So it's an interesting situation.
I think their phrasing doesn't help because, like, I wouldn't say it's a show about grief. I would say it's a show about denial of grief.
Yeah.
Is like a better way to put it, because that's what the whole thing is. She's like, her denial has created another universe and destroyed countless lives, and then her denial about the pain she's inflicting on others. And like that's what the show is about.
Also,
hold on, I think Hunter wanted to try and say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if this is the right section for this, but that end credit scene is like she's on a mountain and like in the comic,
in the middle of nowhere,
born on a mountain. So
it's
near
Wandalore.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's like a symbolic thing.
It might be.
She's just
I mean, that house is very Eastern European looking.
Yeah,
they could. Yeah, she may have gone to Wandalore Mountain or whatever, and like gone back home.
Like this is her rebirth. It's just like she's Scarlet.
Also, something I'm remembering this now. Teyana Paris's last like real scene being saying, well, they don't know what you risked for them. It's not.
I think did she say risked or like gave up?
What you gave up for? It's like, that's not the right message. She tortured these people. She gave them like nightmare existences for a long time, and that's not great.
I think it's supposed to be like that she's also, because timeline wise, she's whatever the phrase is, she's like blooped back, and this is what, like 3 weeks later.
Yeah. I'm
So it's like
I'm
she
just
gets
saying,
blooped
like,
back, and she's like, my mom died 3 years ago, so she's definitely not over her grief.
I don't mind that part. It's just like, we don't need to justify Wanda doing the bad thing. We just need to have her like feel guilty about the bad thing, and trying to make her not feel guilty about the bad thing is maybe the wrong thing to do about this character. Like, things need to matter a little bit, especially since in the next movie, presumably, she could be like the villain of the movie. You don't need to exonerate her right now. You can just let her sit in the guilt a little bit. So,
my one defense of that is like and this we'll end up talking about this, like they pulled so goddamn heavily from comics, like probably more than any other MCU thing has ever done.
Yeah.
And what they did was soften the shitty way Wanda's portrayed in the comics as much as possible. Like, I don't think Wanda has been portrayed kindly since like the early 80s.
Since before House of M. Like,
well before that, because the stuff with the kids is from like the 80s, right?
Yeah, I think that's from the 80s with the the baby hands. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I do see the weaknesses you guys are pointing out, but part of me also thinks it's easier to see these flaws because of, once again, it's standing on its own, and it doesn't have the buffer of having Black Widow and Eternals before it, and then Doctor Strange right after. And I think for the most part, it did hit a lot of the beats that the showrunners were trying to sell it as. Was it this emotional journey that they were trying to make you believe it was going to be? No, but it was 10 times more so than anything else we've seen come out of the MCU at this point, with the exception of minor things. But a lot of those minor things we've had to extrapolate ourselves and add on to with our own versions of how things have gone to give them more emotional weight. So I don't know. For me, like, I'm not saying this was perfect, but I mean, this was pretty goddamn impressive for their first outing on Disney Plus.
Oh, for sure. Especially considering all like the previous Marvel TV-ness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, they came out and they pointed at the fence and they hit it out of the park. Like, they crushed it.
Well, yeah, I would. So this is the other thing. So comparisons we made like earlier, and that I even made earlier, also put this in perspective for me. I compared it a lot to Legion. And I would say that on the Legion scale, which I would still put as like the high mark for television adaptations of Marvel properties, this doesn't reach the heights of Legion. Now that's an unnecessarily high scale to hold it against, admittedly.
Yes.
But and again, you know, I would consider the middle section to be in places as interesting and as provoking as Legion was at points. But I don't even think the finale is nearly as well constructed or as emotionally conclusive. But again, I'm comparing it to a show written by Noah Hawley, who I think is a living genius. Who I think is like a brilliant man who knows exactly what he's doing. So
it's also Legion was aimed at a very different audience.
Legion was aimed at us, not like being like a 4-quad TV show.
Well, and that's the thing too with WandaVision, is that they were aiming that squarely at, and I don't mean this in any type of disrespect to people, but at the most bottom of the barrel MCU fans. They needed to
The
make
common
it as
denominator.
exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted to make it as easily approachable as they possibly could, and
Exactly.
sugarcoat the emotional distress that Wanda was going through,
Yeah,
and the
for the
eventual
stupids.
Like this,
exactly
it almost seemed
like
like
you, Hunter.
they were
Yeah,
like, they're like, yeah.
Think.
It almost seemed like they were like, oh, like they have a carrot, and they're like, come here, donkey. Let's go over here where like there are like horses. Like, let's kind of get you moving to the smarter animals. And
Yeah,
like they took
right.
it like it wasn't a full step where Legion's like with the unicorns. Like
Mhm.
they're like
Yeah, again,
trying to get them. Like
it's a
it's
very
definitely trying to do
yeah.
more.
It's a very challenging show for your average Marvel fan. A very challenging show, and I don't think that should be forgotten. I still don't think that they really fully came through with everything that they set up in the finale. And I think that that's enough. I don't think we need to say anymore because I don't really have anything else negative to say
Yeah.
about the
Alright.
show.
So now we can
Unless there was something
loosen up our
else.
jaws and
Yes. Yeah.
get ready
Right.
to get down on get our
Oh,
pads
I'm-
ready for our knees.
I'm washing the dogs. I'm getting everything in my mouth. Yeah. Yeah. It just fuck. Like it-
Yeah.
all complaints aside, like it's what I've been needing so bad, and I forgot how much I missed having Marvel properties, like
Mhm.
MCU done properties on the screen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
It's
it
so
was
good.
so good.
And the best part is like and again it goes to like where things didn't happen where everybody was guessing. It's like that was the best part of the show was
Yes.
not knowing
Mhm.
where the fuck it was going. And we
Mhm.
had our chat where we were talking and like you know, and I
Yeah.
was so happy to be wrong because they did something
Yeah.
that I didn't even consider that they would possibly do.
I didn't. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I never thought that they would fucking do that.
I thought that was too weird.
Yeah, I was I was so sure that there were other things that they were hinting at, which were very normy and like, oh well, they're
In
gonna
the
do that. But
zeitgeist. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, but no, they went for something that I would consider a very deep cut, and that I never thought we would see on screen.
It was like weird because I feel like didn't I bring that up like a month ago when I got like the Sega thing and I was like playing a Marvel? I'm like, why the fuck is there like why does Vision look like this?
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah,
I
I
was like,
didn't know about White Vision before then.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I was so confused. Like I'm a big comic book. Like I don't remember because I was like White Avenger. I looked up. It's like or White Vision is from like the West Coast Avengers in like '89.
It was because I remember I had posted that picture of the Vision when he'd been disassembled. When they showed, like when you saw the video footage of Vision disassembled, and I mean that was shortly before he became the White Vision, and he and Wanda got divorced, and he didn't have emotion for a while, and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Now to be clear, we pretty much the Vision, not Arcus. A character that I informed everybody about.
Kick him in the rib.
Oh god,
fuck that guy! Fuck that guy so much.
Even me, who so on some level, I enjoy Golden Age stuff, but like, man, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
For those who know, Arcus, the alien version of the Vision that you should look up on your own time that we're not going to get into here.
Yeah, as opposed to the normal Vision whose brainwaves are mapped off of a different guy.
Yeah,
it's not the White Vision.
Something.
Yeah, off of Simon Williams. Yeah. But that ties into the other thing that like also ties into what Lou was saying, like how we're all speculating and having a good time doing that week by week, was Paul Bettany had the best troll I think
it was so
any
good.
actor has ever done in his entire life.
Or like, wait, who has he not worked with, and who would be a good get? Who's the rumors? Denzel Washington? Is it Denzel Washington? Who could he be?
Is it Al Pacino? Because he said one time that he'd really love to work with Al Pacino.
Al Pacino's Mephisto. I'm the devil again.
Like
Al Pacino.
I would have fucking loved that. But no, it was another Paul Bettany.
Like I love the idea that Paul Bettany said that, and then he got a call from Kevin later that night, and it's just like nervous, and Kevin just like he just starts laughing, and they both just start laughing and enjoying the fact that they've got everyone on Earth like, what? Who's he gonna be working with? Who's he gonna be working with?
Well, and that's what's like, and I feel like that's another thing, like I feel like an old man yelling in like into the wind. Like, I feel like that's something that we miss with like the weekly stuff. And besides like what we had with Game of Thrones and like Breaking Bad, like those, like I feel like once every like decade kind of shows, like people are just not, especially like the under like 25 crowd, are just not used to it anyway. There's no normal world, like they've never really done this week
People
to week
aren't
thing.
used to watching TV week to week anymore. It's pretty clear.
Yeah. I think people are just, the only place where that's a thing for most people
is Canada.
Like that's the one place. I do think it's interesting that this show captured so much attention using the week to week thing, and that this is the thing. I guess it would be Marvel if it was going to be anyone.
Well, I mean, they are doing that with the Mandalorian as well.
Yeah,
but
I was just thinking that, like, that kind of. I feel like, but like Star Wars had been on such like so many, like Mandalorian kind of like pulled it up to like baseline, but like MCU's been so high, and there's been like a 2-year drought basically that like people were like rabid for content for this content.
Yeah. And even in some ways, I think the fact that they led with two of what the general audience would think are lesser characters, because there's I definitely have one or two people at work who were watching the show. One of the same guys who also didn't like Captain Marvel. I'm guessing for the same reasons he didn't like WandaVision.
Because women.
Because he doesn't like watching things with vaginas.
He doesn't.
They're only meant to be.
They're only meant to not accept his seed.
And
it
not
just
go to space.
Exactly.
Like great Jagras.
Thank you. It felt strange that they led with this show because of the fact that it's Wanda and Vision, like two characters that haven't really gotten fleshed out all that well in the movies. And
then even in the movies, like comic wise, like even with like Vision's, I would call Vision like a C-lister.
Vision has always been an A-lister in my heart. I don't care what anybody else has to say about it.
Yeah, I feel like, because if you remember, I feel like it goes back to like the Iron Man was kind of a B-lister before that movie. I still think Vision's below Iron Man. So Iron Man was and he's now like Iron Man's a solid A-list, but like I don't think Vision's been in. I don't think he's been involved in any big comic things in the last like 20 years.
Vision was dead for a bit too. I don't know how long, but he got brought back during Avengers Disassembled.
By Wanda, right?
Yeah, and like
she's kind of almost an A-lister. She's like an
power level wise,
she's cosmic level. They've even gone beyond that at some points.
I would say she's like a technical A-lister.
I've been catching up, and they basically say like she is the yang to the yin of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
They're like the Phoenix is the like universal like force of order, being life and death, and she's pure chaos. And they're the opposing force, universal forces.
That makes sense.
And I feel like that's kind of what we're getting at in the show with like the idea of the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. I mean,
as like this thing, because they say chaos magic. Like,
so a positive thing that has come out of this, I've started reading comics again, and I went back to finish the Robinson run. I haven't actually finished it yet because I'm terrible, but I have started to go back and finish it.
Yeah, that Tom King
kind of hinting that. Yeah. Something I was saying, or I was gonna say, is that I've always liked these characters, but they have never been front and center of any of the movies. They've always sort of been in the background. They've been the third thing that happens, the third storyline in a given movie, much the same way that Ruffalo as Hulk has been.
Well, and I can tell you, there's a through line to those three characters of why they need to do that,
right.
and that's because they're way too goddamn OP. Like,
yes,
yeah,
and we see that's what we see in this show. Like, and because Vision is basically unstoppable, as is the Hulk, and Wanda's like beyond them.
I mean, this is why I was very sure that he was permadead, because I didn't think that any writers really wanted to put in the effort to write him, because if you just look at him in the movies so far, the only writer who really tried, funny enough as it is, was Joss. He's the only one who really like put any effort into giving him a real character and to giving him a thing. And I would say that he did a fine job, but everybody else has kind of struggled to really integrate him as that character. You know, he does a very good job of being the guy who sacrifices himself in Infinity War, and his relationship with Wanda is interesting. And something that Elizabeth Olsen pointed out is that their relationship is very non-ironic. It's not played for laughs. It's not jokey.
No.
It's very serious compared to the rest of the MCU, which is oftentimes just filled with that. You know, even the romantic relationships. I mean, just look at Tony and Pepper. It's just constant.
But that's
jokey too.
But that's the thing. Like, Wanda and Vision in the comics have, like, when they were together, like, they were a stalwart couple. Like, they were never ones who, like, outside of Vision, you know, dying and being brought back and them getting divorced. But they've always been together in one form or another. So
they're also not like comedy forward characters in any way whatsoever.
And I think it works, by the way. And I think that she was saying that she enjoyed that as well. She really enjoyed that they're like, they're the two characters where it's very genuine. Everything between them is genuine. Nothing is
Well, and I mean,
there's no artifice there.
That's something that I mean, I'm kind of glad they did it this way, because it gave more emotional weight to the end of Endgame. But that's something with Cap, like he and
Peggy,
and but not Peggy, like her granddaughter.
Whatever, showing up in whatever.
Yeah, the one who's showing up in Falcon Winter Soldier. Like, in the comics, like they were together for a very long time.
Don't they?
No, that's a kid he got in the Mender run.
I thought
what's that?
Didn't he get her pregnant before during Civil War time?
I don't think so. No.
I feel like
he stole a kid. What?
He stole a kid.
I feel like there was a storyline, and this is the insanity of comics. Captain America gets Sharon Carter pregnant, and at some point the Red Skull tries to plant his essence into that child.
Now, probably.
Now,
comics.
What, Hunter? Finish your thought.
You say essence.
Like his being, his person, like his soul. Like, I don't know. I don't think they say soul.
No, because isn't it the ultimate version of Red Skull where like he's just a clone?
No, the ultimate version of Red Skull is Cap's kid.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, in the Ultimates. Yeah. Yeah, in the Mark Millar written Ultimates. Yep.
My favorite.
I would like to bring something up that I thought was real interesting. I think we talked about it last episode as like an idea, or at least I feel like maybe I brought it up. I feel like the show kind of gave us a hint with the whole Mind Stone thing. Is that like, was she together? Was she in a relationship with the Vision, or was it a connection with the Mind Stone?
Both.
Because the Vision that we get in the show is the aspect of the Mind Stone that's been in her. Is what she says.
But it's also her, like, not realizing she's using the power of the Mind Stone to recreate the Vision that she lost.
Yes.
Like,
I'm mostly pulling from, like, and again, I would normally not do this, but because of how much they pulled from other hard from comics, like, there were comics, it wasn't these two characters, but it was actually like Cyclops and Phoenix that talked about how Scott and Jean weren't the relationship. It was really with Scott and the Phoenix Force. And I feel like
I kind of hate that.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit too much for the average MCU fan.
Oh no,
to absorb.
yeah. I'm just saying, like it feels like they were kind of playing with the like, especially with that flashback episode, which I really liked. That like
I did
that
too.
character development stuff and seeing what happened with the experiment, and then even the Hydra people being like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Right.
Like, and it seems like, and I think it goes to what we were talking about last time. I feel like the people are now the Stones thing is a little bit more like a thing. I feel like
So I'm not even though it's kind of my theory, kind of not. I don't know if it's entirely like intended, but they could definitely go that way. They could definitely move in that direction. I think the witchcraft stuff kind of doesn't suggest that as much. But
it could have the stone could have awakened her.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the relationship real quick. My reading of what you're talking about, Lou, is that their mutual connection to the Mind Stone just supercharged what would have been there already. It amped up the natural attraction that they would have to each other, and it just made it much bigger. It just made.
I think this was like my
much more likely to pop.
Vision.
Yeah, I feel like this was my mental my head canon of why White Vision fucked off is because like it wasn't really him that loved her; it was the Mind Stone, like that sentience.
So
that's my current.
Here's where I'll give you like a point. Him not having the stone in him might not have given him enough of that extra juice to want to stick around. He might be feeling a little bit more selfish and not wanting to deal with what's going on.
He was just like, "Fuck this, I'm out."
Wait, and I had kids with some other dude that looked like me.
Right, exactly. Well, so something that I was thinking, and I'm glad that they didn't that they left this open. This is something I'm really glad that they left open for interpretation later down the line. But something that I thought of was, well, however they are to bring a Vision back or a version to bring a Vision back, it would have been interesting to see Vision come back and he just realizes what's going on around him. He sees what Wanda has done, and on a moral level, he's like, "Screw you!
Breaks her neck.
I don't." I mean, if a certain director of a certain franchise who used to work on those films was in charge, but I think that actually would have been maybe better for what I was talking about earlier with, no complete arc for Wanda. Having Vision to her face reject her after she brings him back would almost be a better way to end that.
I agree with you, and I feel like that's the softening of not. I feel like that's they don't. I feel like they did not want to outright villainize her.
Mm-hmm.
As like a female, like, and I don't. This feels like really gross to say. Like I feel like this is like they didn't want to outright villainize like a female lead of their first TV show.
Yep.
And
I don't think that's a crazy thing. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, because you still have. There's still there's always going to be a problem there. You're always going to be worried about the segment of the population that's going to say, well, we have so few female characters that are good, or female characters who are just like,
in general,
objectively paragons of positivity and good moral choices, that any female character who is not that is a problem. And that's a position to take that I don't entirely agree with or disagree with. So I can understand that position, and also that's a lot of what Disney's thing is now. Strong female characters who are heroic or the good guy.
I guess I do think one of the best villains in the MCU is a woman. Like I think Hela's one of the best MCU villains.
True. I see I know what you mean, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of their marketing depends on the fact
yeah.
that they've leaned heavily on female characters. I mean, they released Mulan, and it's one of the only things that they put that $30 price tag on.
Well,
and then recently with this Raya movie, they're very much depending on this. It's part of their focus. It's part of their strategy.
I can say there's also another connection, especially with those two films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I know where you're going with that. I would like to point out one of my other problems is that people believing that a goddamn woman would know how to use a switch axe against a Greek actress is absolutely ridiculous to me. No, I have to agree with you though, Lou. Like, I do think the whole reason they didn't do that is because they didn't want to demonize their first big female character on a TV show. Like, especially when it's like, it's the WandaVision show. Like, I could see them doing the whole like Vision rejecting her and her like being like, oh God, what have I done? And going off and going into solitude. But any other way than that would have just outright villainized her. And that is not good for Disney's business right now.
No, I think they're a compromise of the concept of like, and what they show is like, she's kind of not really not in control, but like she's obviously has control, but like she did this kind of subconsciously. Like she didn't actively do this. Is kind of their way to like be like, oh, she wasn't really like she did bad, but it was an accident. I think it's a lot like it's and it's the problem with the comic book history of the character and what they're pulling from is like that character is very rooted in like very kind of misogynistic comic writing of like where she's always the woman is the bad guy because she's having the relation like that. Like Wanda is like one of the biggest like comic villain, like not a villain, like women bring chaos to your life. She's the embodiment of that. Even since like now, like what they're doing with the X-Men, where they're like, there was like one of the panels where I can't remember his name. The big red psychic guy with long black hair that wears like a crazy outfit, Erik.
Big red.
He's like red skin, long black hair. He's a psychic powered guy.
Not sure.
Is it Exodus?
Might be. I don't know.
He's like talking to kids and he's basically teaching them about how she's the great pretender and how she like depowered all the mutants and like that is still what Wanda is in the comics. She's the thing that caused like the destruction of mutant kind.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I honestly, back to how week by week we all had different theories. Like, I was really kind of surprised. I mean, I'm not that surprised, being that they don't actually have plans that they're ready to reveal to the public yet about mutants. But I was kind of expecting them to reverse that House of M thing in the show, so it would give Wanda a more pretty positive public image. What's that, Hunter?
So here's the thing about that is like we still don't know what the status of that is, first of all. And second of all, like if you look at like the kids and the stuff with her being a Scarlet Witch, technically that makes them in a sense, not like in like the traditional they're already mutants. Like this not.
Well, and that was something they hinted at briefly in the flashback episode that you mentioned, Lou.
Yeah,
that,
with
when
Agatha, like, it was there. Did you do this? Like, did you change the probability?
Well, and she said without the help of the Mind Stone, it would have withered on the vine when she's talking about her powers. So she's always had these abilities. I'm just wondering if they are slowly planting the seeds for mutants in this and just didn't want to outright say it. Because
the thing about that also, it's like Pietro, if he had the same thing done to him, he had powers too. Like
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Which they always said that they were like the only two that they were able to make. Correct?
And I believe so.
Yeah, which suggested they were special in some way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that
We're all special
that
in
they
the
weren't
eyes of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior.
right.
We're all pretty lonely, right?
I think that they just weren't ready to do. They weren't ready to do mutants yet. I think they weren't ready.
100%.
And but they certainly laid the seeds so that those seeds could be activated down the line.
They laid
did
a lot of. There's a lot of seeds that were laid down, like, and all the stuff with Sword was really fun, and they're like, of all the stuff that I was like, because we know that there's a Fantastic Four movie in the works. The Sword stuff was like, oh, this could be a way to kind of do a Fantastic Four that they were a Sword team.
Right.
They could, but I mean, Fantastic Four is so far in the future. When they get to that movie, I'm sure everything will be lined up perfectly for it. So, yeah, I mean, it could be that they're laying seeds for stuff, or it could just be, we introduce Sword, so it can be a part of something.
It just reminds me of the biggest thing where like, who could that be that she's saying is her friend? That's the engineer. And it's just some person.
You know what the new version of that is, Lou? By the way, is Jimmy Woo's Cliff, where he's on the phone. He goes,
guy he called in Shield.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
because like there's people who are like, it's Cliff Randall. I'm like, is it? Or what, did he just make up a name?
Oh, he definitely. Which I feel like we have to save like just talking about the entire like ensemble cast because they were all perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jimmy Woo is like Randall Park killed it.
Oh, what's her name as Darcy? Like they were so good. Kat Denny.
Yeah.
I mean, both fantastic. Of them, both of them as returning cast members were really solid. I like the way that they handled them both. I like that the conclusion of her is she hits that bureaucrat's car and then she just
fucks off.
She just bounces.
What is that? It's like, Darcy said that like
you breach of her quitters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something is for the week. Debriefs are for the week or something. Yeah, so good.
It's like they weirdly made her feel like a scientist to me, which she didn't feel like that in the Thor movies at all.
Not at all.
She really wasn't. She was like a political scientist major, and
she seemed like I'm gonna take this class because it seems easy, and like I don't know why I'm here. And then she's like, she actually seemed like competent in doing what she's doing.
So they tell you what she was, and she was like, it wasn't political science. It was something connected to that. So she became a physicist over the period of time that we didn't see. She got more into hard science, and she became a professional.
Yeah. I'm sure that happens when you see a Chris Hemsworth
living
drop in front of you all the time, shirtless.
Yeah. Also, being there and assisting Jane, seemingly outside of the internship for years, probably does that as well. So yeah.
Oh, before I forget, like the tiny little callbacks, because I think there are two big ones in the show. The first being the card trick for Jimmy Woo is so tiny, but so awesome that like that's such a goofy little thing that like is so perfect. And then the book, like, and both things I found on TikTok that people were like, "Holy shit! I'm doing a rewatch. There's a book missing in the Ancient Ones thing, and look at the runes." And it's that fucking book.
Yeah, that was really good. Regardless of how planned that was, that's just a great detail.
That's just picking up the breadcrumbs like so well, and like
of the Darkhold, by the way.
Yes. Oh my god! Now
Agents
of Shield and Cloak and Dagger and the Runaways mean nothing anymore.
They never did.
None of it meant anything. None of it ever has.
What if Hayward is actually Ward?
No.
The fucking Darkhold show. The only canon show remains Agent Carter. The show that nobody fucking watched.
Good.
I watched, and season 1 is fantastic.
You know what? Good.
Season 1 is great. Yeah.
So, speaking of the Darkhold, the one that they have in Agent Shield looked like shit. This is
it looked like a copy of the Necronomicon they picked up at Spencer's.
Oh
Big,
god.
it had the word Darkhold on it in big dumb fucking font.
Like when I say the
I mean-
Necronomicon, I mean it looks like they picked up a prop replica of Army of Darkness, and that's what they
Oh,
used.
You're being
God.
right. I thought
It's
like
like
Shit.
I thought it looked like the Necronomicon that they sell at, like Barnes and Noble, where you open it up to like the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, and it's in like the fake, nice, fancy font or whatever.
oh, it's the same book. It just looks better under the black
Yeah.
light.
Yeah.
Well, and if you bring
yeah.
it to the back of the store, you can get a dildo for free.
Right.
Yeah, it's no. Quick side story. I was shocked to see when I went to the mall 50 years ago before COVID. The Spencer's Gifts had a bunch of bongs and then dildos in the back of the store.
Oh,
so that was
yeah.
But
Yeah,
if
that
you
was
take
hype.
all the black, if you take all the black lights out of a Spencer's Gift and replace them, is it still Spencer's Gift?
Yeah, that entire speech was so great. Like I was expecting a knockdown, drag out like whole time, and only one vision survives.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're just like, no, let's have a philosophical conversation.
It's
Which-
it's so much better. Like it's like bear match.
The people who
I
hate
love
there,
the.
there are people who hate that, and they would hate Star Trek.
Well, no, their brains would fucking explode if they saw some of the things that happened in Star Trek.
Yes.
Funny.
I love that when they subvert stuff like that, they subvert the big action sequence with a thing that is so in character. And I
But we
fucking
got the
love it
action
so
sequence.
much.
We got them fighting, and it was
Right.
we had phased arm in chest times 2
Yes.
simultaneous.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
and
we
it's
had
like,
a
all
lot
right,
of it.
yeah, we're the same thing, so we got to do this a different way.
Well,
Have you
with
ever
the,
heard of the Ship of Theseus?
well, with that Ship of Theseus speech, like it's funny because have any of you seen the movie John Dies at the End?
No.
Yeah,
know what happens
not
in
for
it.
a while, but yes, yeah.
Arlen, if you remember in the very beginning of that, he presents the same idea, but it's about an axe. He's like, so you buy an
Right.
axe and you have to kill whatever, and you break the handle. So you tell him you need to get a new handle. So then you go and use the axe on something else, and you break the axe itself. So you need to get a new axe head. But so then same guy comes back and points at you after you've killed him and said, "That's the axe that killed me." Is the answer correct? Like it's I don't know. I
Right.
love the fact
Oh
that
yeah,
they,
I literally
Yeah.
I was reading on Wikipedia like the different things with like that specific, and there's like, oh, here's the resolutions: no identity over time, 4-dimensionalism, cognitive science, gradual loss of identity. The cognitive science seems to be what they were going with in the show. Like, because like one of the first one was like an ancient Greek guy. It's like, well, if you step in a river and you step out and you step back in the river, are you still stepping in the river? Like, it's not the same river. That water that you first touched is gone.
is gone.
My head hurts.
Yeah, and that's where like the 4-dimensional is like you can step in the river in the idea of 4-dimensional time, but like you're not stepping in the same slice of river.
It's not the same river now.
No, you're not, yeah. It's like it's a whole like it's, but like it's such a perfect idea for that character, or like those character, because they're a character. Like to have that philosophical discussion. It's like, oh. Like the only other character I would think to do that would be like a Martian Manhunter, would be like the exact same, because they're kind of similar characters, like
definitely
exact same character.
Pretty much.
I
One
mean,
is derivative, like Martian Manhunter begot the Vision, who begot the Red Tornado, and you could see diminishing returns.
I mean, again, the timely version of the Vision was an alien, so yeah, they're very similar. They're very similar.
Yeah. Speaking of Vision espousing philosophies, I loved how angry people got about his line. What was it?
The death thing.
Like,
yeah.
Oh,
that's just a stupid thing to get so mad over. Like, for real, what do you?
It's a good line. Like it's so good.
It is like that.
People are like, "Oh, it's not that deep." It's like, shut the fuck up.
Nothing is deep. It's a fucking comic book movie. Blow me.
It's a yeah. It's perfect. What do people want? Exactly. Like this is one of those things where I'm like, what did you actually want?
Oh,
what did you want from this?
That's people being contrarian.
What were your expectations
Yes.
from a Disney Plus show? What exactly did you want them to do?
I also think it's a lot of people who didn't even watch it. That's the internet problem.
No, it's the same people who will paint tweet out a picture of a green screen, be like, "Oh, MCU fans be like the cinematography." Like, fuck.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's.
I also kind of feel like that was the point in the series, like where they were doing that flashback episode where they lost a lot of people who were 100% sold in, because they're like, wait, this
no punchy.
Yeah, this is making me maybe feel things. I don't want
cinema. This is actual cinema.
Feelings are for women.
Because,
I'm gonna
from
go
that
watch
70s
the
show.
I can't even say the whole thing.
I don't need feelings. Yeah, that's something I kind of feel like is what happened, is like it started to actually have a strong emotional core, and a lot of people are like, well, fuck this, I'm out. I need to see things getting blown up, or I need to see Superman breaking necks. I'm done with this shit.
And those people missed out on Vision. Like
exactly.
Like,
which is like the greatest thing ever. Like the Black Twitter did with Vision.
Exactly.
I'm glad that they adopted him as their own.
Yes.
They're like my favorite one was like, well, he's made up of like whatever, like 80% vibranium, and vibranium comes from Africa, so he is black. It's African.
Yes.
So
like, it's like, take an MC, you made the whitest man on earth, but like in Africa.
I love it. Why are you gonna be so shisty? You know, you're like, well, we're gonna give me a kiss.
So okay, that fucking the people who are like, oh, this isn't cinema. It's devoid of value. It's like, fuck off. Honestly, like,
well, yeah, fuck those people in general. Just fuck off.
If you only watch fucking I can't even think of a director right now. Like,
do you want me to explain for you?
I'm not going to say Scorsese because that's too easy.
Some fucking indie.
Terrence Malick. If you only watch Terrence
Malick movies, and you're like, this is the only way I can feel anything. Fuck you. You're a nerd. I fucking hate you.
God. I'm worried about you if the only way you can feel anything is by watching Terrence Malick films, because either you're no emotions or you're a horrible person,
or like you fucking remember that goddamn THX whatever George made. I hate you.
That's your favorite movie, THX 1138. Just
the only way I care about anything is when I'm watching Godot.
I love original Ripper Quay. Fuck you.
Hey, how dare you?
Hey,
sir? How dare you?
Yeah,
it's a great movie, but fuck you.
Let's ease back a little
I know.
bit.
I'm just saying. Like, yeah. Where were we?
That line was
so. So the penultimate episode is really fucking good. I really love that flashback episode. Aside from the, what is grief if not love preserving, there's a lot of stuff in that episode that I think is like top tier Marvel. Like I would put it against some of the best moments in the entire history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The way that they show the Mind Stone, the way that it's shot, and the way that just the way that it feels, the explanation, like, activated by it.
The explanation for why all of the sitcom stuff in their childhood was so good. Was that the episode that we also got her going to Sword?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it ended. Yeah, it ended with her like leaving to go to their house, and then.
Yeah. So that was literally the part where, like, when she opened up the paper, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, this is again our nerd talk. I was like, she walked in the car and there's the paper. I was like, "Oh shit! Is this the Mephisto moment? Like, is that the contract?" And then she went to the thing. I'm like, "Oh, bless you." And then she opened it up. It's the deed. My wife went like, audibly went like, "Oh." Like, she was just like, that was like such a heart-wrenching, like devastating, like, oh, it's so like, it's such a nice thing, but like knowing that he's dead and it's like this lot that's just empty. It's everything crashing. It was like a perfect moment to show it's like all of the things coming to a head and crashing down, and then like it's like the implosion, and then it just expands and it blows up with her powers. It was so well done, that part.
Yeah, that moment is just in this space. It's one of those moments that gave me a feeling, and just that entire episode, it gave me feelings that I don't get very often. You know, I had this experience with one of the issues of Batman.
Human emotion.
Well, no, like so, like the issue of 0 Year where it's like Bruce trying to stop some Riddler thing. He's trying to stop Dr. Death from doing a thing, and it's constantly cutting back to that night in the alley. And I felt very similar feelings during this flashback episode as I did during that. And that's a comic book that I've like reread and cried because it affected me.
It's a good writer.
Yeah.
It's like that's a very well written like sequence. Like
yes.
And like that they bring us through like building that character and building the loss. Because that moment pretty much comes because they go from the what is death thing where Vision's kind of consoling Wanda about Quicksilver to then
build so well. Yes.
Yeah, and then going to like when she goes to Sword, and then we also like that's the moment where we see like, oh, Hayward's a fucking lying piece of shit. Like we all knew it. And then we see that like, oh wait, she didn't take the body. And then she leaves. And then when it happens, it's like, what is going on? Like that isn't the Vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
and
like
I would even say that the Vision's the projected version of the Vision speech at the very end of the last episode, I fucking love that. Like I thought it was so good.
Who knows what I'll be next?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the final episode that I do think is really good. Like I love her. I love when she says, you know, I know who I am, and then the fucking crown emerges, and it's like they were looking at James Robinson's art, and they were like, okay, drawing that or not his art.
Well, making that dumb ass headpiece make sense and the name makes sense is like I didn't even think they were gonna bother because I honestly never realized that they didn't just call her Scarlet Witch. She's just been Wanda this whole time.
Yeah.
Well,
that was something else before like she fully took on the mantle of the Scarlet Witch. Like when they're fighting, you know, she'd hit Agatha and then she'd miss and hit the wall and hit Agatha and miss and hit the wall. I'm like, how are they going to do this? And then it's like they show the giant rune that she's painted basically on the hexagon she created. I'm like, that's so good. That's so good because I was not expecting that.
Yeah, the using the whole like the phrase of her using the whole buffalo, like setting that up. It's like, oh, a witch can't use her powers if like another witch like says like, oh, I would, like you know, that's the Chekhov's gun. And like, but that was what 2 episodes earlier. Like, I completely forgot that was the thing. Yeah, I was more of like, oh my god, this fucking Vines man thing. And Hunter's gonna come and
right. They could use another reminder other than the
that was the Nexus, wasn't it? That's what you called it?
Yeah, the next
probably. Yeah. Well, they could have used another reminder outside of that little like opening flashback thing that they do at the beginning of every episode. But yeah, like I do love when the runes emerge. I was like, that's cool. And again, like her glowing and like the way that the crown is energy and then it becomes solid and her whole costume is so fucking cool.
Yes.
And in that moment, you're like. And even Agatha's like, I know what you are. Like, you don't understand what you're doing. It's like, well, we don't know what's going on, but based on Agatha's like reactions, like, she's not doing this for selfish reasons per se, like trying to stop her. As well. Like she's like, it's just like that's how bad the idea of the Scarlet Witch is.
Yeah,
Agatha was in a backhanded way trying to be a force of balance.
Which she's not a villain in the comics either.
No.
Right. And that's again going back to something earlier. I'm glad that they leave it open so that she can still be that mentor character down the line.
She also was part of bringing the kids back, I believe.
I don't know. I'm not sure about all that.
I think
see what
she's
they
part
do.
of making them real.
Maybe.
I can't remember.
We'll
A lot of that
see.
stuff is yeah.
We
I mean,
will
honestly,
very much see. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to see Catherine Hahn again. I mean, honestly,
I'd like to see her again.
well, I know you
I-
would. You fucking simp account for her. Um,
This was
I
just
feel right in
WandaVision was
feel
called
right in
Hunter
credit.
Sims for all the ladies.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
that's my secret cap.
I mean, I've already brought up the Scarlet Witch James Robinson run a couple of times, and for me, it's the thing of that is my defining run in terms of what I want this character to eventually be, and as much as this character can eventually develop into how she's presented there would be the optimal thing for me. But I love how the MCU just does whatever it fucking wants. So if we never get there, sure. But
yeah,
her having this like, antagonistic sort of mentor Mickey Rocky thing with Agnes, something that I would really like to see. Her being a much more developed person who like is emotionally mature as she is in the Robinson run is something that I would also like to see. She's very much not there yet, but I would very much like to see that.
I don't even know if we're going to see any more Scarlet Witch or Vision after the next Doctor Strange film.
Fair.
Like I'm legitimately thinking that like Wanda will be depowered somehow and she'll get sent to a world where Vision is human and alive, but still her Vision somehow,
I could
and
see that.
I could see that being an exit for both of them.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
could see her like getting
yeah.
mind wipe in some way,
I mean,
which is what they've done in
so
the comics.
purely going off of what they've already done in the MCU, and this is complete and utter speculation at this point.
Exactly.
But based off of that, I could see them getting rid of Elizabeth Olsen and her version of the Scarlet Witch, but still keeping a version of that character around. And I only say that because like we already know that Florence Pugh is the new Black Widow essentially, and that she's going forward going to be Black Widow.
Maybe, who knows? They still
well
the movie.
That also has like comic book
but,
precedent in a way.
Right. Like I'm saying that there may be a legacy character thing that happens down the line.
What that could be is that we could end up in some way with the kids coming back.
Right.
Which would make sense in what we are seeing in all the other shows and movies, like with the characters that we know are coming.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Because Wiccan and Speed are very integral parts of the Young Avengers team.
They might not be there at all, though. That's the thing. We don't know.
We don't know anything, which is awesome.
Yeah,
but even that they were in this fucking show, like those kids, even doing that was crazy.
It's and I'm glad that they swung for the fences in a couple places, and that's one of the places. But I think my point is like we don't know what they'll do, and I think that they like to keep their options open, and they always like to set up possibilities. And I think we could see possibilities. I think you're right, Erik. We could 100% be seeing Elizabeth Olsen for the last time in Doctor Strange, and there could be some other way in which they bring.
They're going to kill her.
Sort of, I mean, who knows?
They're going to euthanize Elizabeth Olsen.
They might. Well, I mean, just as this character.
Yeah.
But they might use it. They might use the name Scarlet Witch in another way. I don't know. But again, this is something that we've been talking about a lot. I really, I don't care because I trust the MCU is going to do something interesting with it at this point. They're going to do something that's going to keep me guessing and keep me coming back, which is what I enjoy about the MCU. I enjoy the speculation and I enjoy being wrong at this point. Because what they do is almost always better than anything anybody can anticipate or guess, and that's what kind of makes me feel sad for the people who are like, "Well, my theory didn't come true." Yeah, but like what they gave us is so good.
Yeah,
Also,
like,
like,
who cares?
Yeah.
Like, well, buckle up, Buttercup. Like, who gives a shit? Like, we got something awesome, and who the fuck knows what they're gonna give us? I feel like that was my best takeaway of the show. Is like, I didn't think they could surprise me, and they surprised me like 5 times in the show.
Yeah.
And it's not like Game of Thrones or whatever, where like the thing that we wanted was wrong, and also they gave us utter bullshit. No, they gave us something great. They gave us something fucking amazing.
Yeah, they gave us like
something fantastic.
An end to the Vision that we never really like, that we could close out to their relationship, and yet he's still kind of around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Like Kevin Feige is not a liar when he says there are no resurrections in the MCU. He's said that. He's got a record to say that. Now, Kevin Feige, like Paul Bettany, is a gigantic fucking troll, and we fucking love him for it. But he's not lying when he says that there are no resurrections. Technically, that wasn't not a resurrection because, as I said in the previous WandaVision episode, he is basically a toaster. And when you unplug a toaster, that toaster is a.
Does he have a soul?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, because Gamora is not the same character. She's completely different.
Well, he said there are no resurrections. There are new versions of the same character, but there are no resurrections. And so far, they've kept to that pretty well.
The thing you guys are forgetting, though, is come March 18th, the landscape is going to change because there's going to be something that's going to reset all of the DCU and everything's going to be better because it's going to be as good.
It literally took me like a good hard second to know what you were talking about.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch a 4-hour movie that already came out that I didn't like the first time.
No, a movie that I used to fall asleep on a plane.
I'm excited for March 31st. When we see what happens when a big monkey and a big lizard.
Big monkey.
I'm excited for March 19th because that's when Falcon and Winter Soldier premieres.
Yeah, and we find out a wizard and a sorcerer are the same thing.
Yeah. No, they're not the same thing.
No,
a wizard is a sorcerer wearing a fancy hat.
Well, a sorcerer is someone born with innate magical powers, and a magician or
you know what, nerd?
Who learns.
Do I have the power to mute Erik?
What? I'm talking about D&D rules, man.
I don't care.
But jumping onto that, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, if WandaVision is the bar for where they're going to be going forward, I'm so excited.
I'm kind of excited for the different format too, because it's 8. Is it 6 or 8 1 hour?
6 episodes.
6 episodes. I am hyped for that. And then I'm actually I kind of have an expectation for that. What I'm more hyped for is actually Loki, because knowing how crazy they went here, I can't even fucking imagine what they do in that show.
Yeah. And Loki looks like it's taking place all over time. So that's
time
more interesting.
Super, it looks like.
Yep.
And becomes president.
Well, he's running for president.
Wow.
That's taken from a particular
Trump
cover, if I remember correctly. No, there was a
cover of
Loki wearing that particular pin.
Do you think Owen Wilson texts his brother and was like, "Hey, how's Stargirl? I'm in fucking Loki in the MCU. Suck it."
LOL.
I
might make a Cars 4. Don't know.
Just printing money.
I do like that Owen Wilson had to be explained what the MCU is and everything that happened before. That was a nice story that came out. Yeah, apparently Tom Hiddleston had to give him an education on the MCU.
That's hilarious.
You know what I just thought of that would break me? Because you know how Loki has the shape-changing powers and he used it in the one Thor movie to turn into Cap? We know who he's friends with. What if he turns into Charlie Cox for a second? Just to fuck with us. All of us.
Oh my god. Well, the Feige would do that. He would
does his Charlie work.
He doesn't even. They don't need to dress it. He just turns into Charlie Cox, takes 2 steps, and turns back to normal.
Yeah.
He turns to Charlie Cox, like does like a blind hand thing for a second, and then goes back to normal, like just to be a dick.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, I think we should probably wrap up, being that I think we
My
finished
brain
what
is
we
mush.
could say
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
WandaVision.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Does
Yeah, I
anyone
mean,
have
unless
like a closing thought that they really
yeah,
wanted to get out, and then I think we can get out of here.
yeah, I don't be fucking babies. It was a good show.
Yeah, don't
Like,
Yeah.
quit being fucking dorks.
That
Yeah.
middle section is still like the most exciting television I've seen in a very long time, and just the most exciting Marvel stuff that I've seen in recent years. Like, just yeah, so many good choices. I love the troll of Ralph Boner. Like, it's such a
Oh
good
yeah,
troll.
we didn't even talk about that, but like yeah, it's
Like,
so
there's
good.
not really much to talk about.
No.
Though. It's just
Yeah.
It was
the most
perfect.
expensive
you know,
Boner joke of all time.
and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I've heard people say, "Well, they shouldn't ever do that again." I don't agree. They shouldn't do it every
They should do
time.
it I think they do it every
Yeah.
Oh well,
movie
that's what
now.
like the Charlie Cox thing would be doing exactly like kind of that,
Right.
like, just fucking with us.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
even then, that's almost more justifiable. But like, I love that they made the choice, and I really hope that they continue to mess with us in a fun, entertaining way that gives us.
I want Hugh Jackman
something
to show up,
speculate.
and
Yeah.
his name is Dick Butt Kiss.
They should make Ryan Reynolds pitch for Deadpool 3 like a mini series, like a little.
Well, haven't
yeah.
they like kind of hinted that like Deadpool 3 is gonna like kind of float into the MCU and some
They
way?
have, but I'm talking about
Ryan Reynolds outright said that it's going to be in the MCU.
Yeah, but he had a pitch for before that happened.
Yeah.
His pitch was him and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine on a road trip.
Yes. They took that from us.
Yes.
So what would it just be a corpse of Wolverine?
I would just see like that Ryan Reynolds is just like angry as Hugh Jackman as like with the hair singing show tunes.
I mean, yeah, we could get that too. I'm just, I would love, I would love them to do his version.
It's like Weekend at Bernie's.
Exactly.
Right.
Like sunglasses on him.
Oh, see, I think
it was
in my mind it's like carpool karaoke for 2 hours,
Right.
but it's just Hugh Jackman dressed as Wolverine
Yeah.
and Ryan Reynolds
I
in the
mean,
suit
yeah,
in different
kinda.
positions.
In my head, it was like Hugh Jackman in a super comic book accurate costume as like a, hey,
Yes.
you finally get this. We're gonna do this now. You get the costume for a whole movie. I feel like that would be
Amazing.
that would be something. Hugh would come back for that, even though I don't think he wants to.
See, I feel like I would love that as like a really funny like 5-minute bit, and it's just like Hugh Jackman singing all the songs as Wolverine of Les Miserables, and it's just Ryan Reynolds in the suit killing himself in the car in different ways.
I would love that too.
All right,
okay. Yeah, I think. Because I think we're done.
It's almost 1:30 on the East Coast, so yeah. All right. Well, I have been your host this evening for as much as that's worth, Erik Dorchik. You can find me at Erik_Fedor. There on Instagram. There's pictures of dogs and cats and food and comics. I'm floating around the Phantom Zone, saying things, doing things. Sometimes not. Sometimes I am. Who knows? It's worth it to join just to see. Maybe I can convince you to show up randomly at the end of an episode and talk shit about one of the other hosts. Outside of that, hey everybody, I don't care if you know people who have been vaccinated and you're not. That doesn't mean everything's safe. Don't be stupid. There's lots of mutations out there. We are in the eye of the storm right now, and what you decide to do will decide how the rest of the world continues. So it all lies on your shoulders. Yes, you, whoever's listening to this right now, I'm talking directly to you. You are the reason why COVID is going to continue if it does. So get your shit together. Wash your hands. Don't be assholes. Wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's it.
I second all of that. Lost Hero Podcast. We are coming back after a week off, so listen to a recently watched that me and Eric Sayor are planning to record. It has not been recorded yet, so look forward to that. Look forward to our top 10s for 2020, which will be coming out soon-ish. Those will be interesting because our movie watching experiences were very different last year, as I'm sure everybody would have assumed. So look forward to our very interesting different lists. Yeah.
So all right, friend of the show, Isaiah,
Yes.
is in
Yes.
some trouble right now.
Oh, we were gonna open with this.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Hey.
So there's a GoFundMe flowing around. I've been keeping it in my timeline, trying to keep it in the group. I've pinned it to the announcement tab if you want to go donate. And I think we're gonna put the GoFundMe in the description of this episode. Go donate or share if you can. Help him out.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get him to 9K so he can get back on his feet. He's had a rough go of things due to COVID and losing his mother recently, and he really needs our help. So let's help him out.
Yep.
Yeah, if you've listened to the show, you've heard him on here before.
Yes.
He would do the same for any of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, and links will be in the post for different ways to donate. So yeah, please help any way you can. Even a couple bucks, like over his PayPal or whatever, which I'm also gonna link, will be hugely beneficial. So
yeah.
Go do that. Yeah.
Anything else, Hunter?
Nah, other than that, go fuck yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel weird plugging stuff now.
Or doing your
Thanks.
bit.
Yeah. So yeah, rate and review, subscribe, tell your friends, donate to Izza. And yeah, so the comic show, we've been doing like an anime thing. So we watched and talked about Bleach. The Bleach movie on Netflix was actually it was pretty good. And then we watched and talked about Speed Racer. Speed Racer, I would arguably say, is the best Wachowski film.
Probably.
Wow. Okay.
It really, like the entire time I was like, why doesn't this have a 4K release?
You know, when you say that, and another person I know also say that, I mean that's something.
It's so visually stunning of a film. I think we're gonna do like a full comic book episode and talk about what we've been reading next, and then we are closing out anime stuff with Battle Angel Alita.
Oh jeez.
Which I have not. It could be worse. I was not going to watch Ghost in the Shell because that's one of my favorite animes, and yeah.
No, Battle Angel Alita isn't bad. It's just I haven't seen that anime in a very long time.
Yeah.
Why not just watch the Robert Rodriguez movie?
Yeah. So it'll be fun. Well, we're watching the movie.
No. Okay, never mind. I was thinking there was an animated film.
Nope.
Yeah,
we're watching the live action one.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess that's it. I think Smallville Chronicles is coming back soon. So yeah, watch that. Listen. Yeah. Tell friends.
You forgot to mention your Instagram.
Oh yeah, it is we're at Reverse Connor. You can send all this stuff about how you I really don't like rodents, so just send me stuff about like not liking rodents.
Yeah, also tell them how much you hate Zack Snyder, dude.
Yeah. Oh my god. I cannot stand the fact that there's a Snyder Cut coming. It's terrible.
I quote from him. He said
you completely broke kayfabe there, guys. So good.
I love it. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Adios. I forgot. I'm the one that has to do the thing.